the feelings that you are feeling now of stress and exhaustion and questioning yourself and if you are doing the right thing for your students, for your school, for your community, and ultimately for yourself, don't make you alone. They make you human. That we are all struggling with this, looking at what someone else is doing and thinking, I am not that good, or why isn't all of the work that I'm putting in here being appreciated or being seen or being understood? Why aren't people making these connections? This downward swirl of stress that we can find ourselves in is something that we have to continue to work on and work through. Welcome to the Choir Baton, a podcast designed to engage with people and stories, ideas, and inspirations stemming from choir. No other art form, no sport, no hobby, no business requires a group of people to execute a communal goal with just their voices. Join me, your host, Beth Philemon, as I interview guests who are singers, teacher-conductors, instrumentalists, and community members. Together, we'll ask questions, seek understanding, and share insight from our experiences in life and in choir. Hey, Choir Baton, and welcome. Well, it's actually to the place where I generally always record, but I'm giving you an inside look into what my home looks like this time of the year. If you are watching this on YouTube, if you're listening to it, then it looks wherever the same you always listen to the podcast is. But I am really, I don't know if I'm excited for this episode. Excited might be an interesting word to choose, but yeah, welcome to episode 65 of the Choir Baton podcast. I am excited to be doing a solo episode. There's always a mix of excitement and trepidation with doing a solo episode, right? Because it is excitement in that you get to talk what you want to talk about, but there's also trepidation in like, oh, it's just me talking for a period of time. I am honestly a little worried about my voice today. You'll hear it, even though I've done some vocal exercises this morning to work on warming it up. But there is also that trepidation that I'll say the wrong thing or not clearly articulate what I am hoping to share with you all. So a little behind the scenes into what goes into making these solo episodes, but I'm so excited that you are here today to talk about the most common, most frequently downloaded title from last year's podcast. This is round 2 of the episode. It is the most stressful time of the year. Now, last year when I recorded that episode, I had no idea that it would be the single most downloaded episode of the Choir Baton podcast. And I don't necessarily I don't know the exact numbers, but I do follow what titles resonate with people and such. And this was it. And at first I was a little surprised, right? I was like, who's going to listen to an episode in December that's all about stress and reminding us that we're stressed out this time of year as choir directors? But then I was, upon further consideration, realized that, there's comfort, right, in knowing that you are not the only one that is enduring the most stressful time of the year. And that feedback has stuck with me and into preparation for this episode. And to be quite honest, I debated, do I record another episode this year with the same title? Not for any other reason than is this year going to be stressful for choir teachers like it has been in years past? And would it still resonate with people the same? Quite frankly, I've gone back and forth about it for multiple weeks. And I'm a firm believer that I won't record something just to record something. And I didn't want to make this episode just for the sheer sake of making an episode by this title. But what I've noticed and what I've seen is that despite my first thinking that maybe this time of the year wouldn't be as stressful as years past, right? You don't have night after night, day after day of different performances where maybe what the singers are wearing is different. And then you might be leading a rehearsal one day and then you are singing in a rehearsal the next. And for those of you that are instrumentalists, maybe you're playing another one and it's just back to back. And it is incredibly stressful because you're always going and doing. And for the majority of us, we don't have that this year. Now, I do have my coffee here, so pardon me while I take a sip. And if you are enjoying this with coffee, water, or any other beverage, this is your reminder to take a sip as well. I wondered, I bet people are going to be a bit more rejuvenated this time of year because there is not that stress. Now, this is a month and a half, even a month ago, that I'm considering this and considering what it means for this podcast episode. And thinking about how could the message of the most wonderful time of the year, translated to the most stressful time of the year, still be relevant to us. And what I have observed in the last several weeks from the online community of choral music folks, both Facebook, although I don't spend a ton of my time there, Facebook, Instagram, and now my newest obsession, TikTok, what I've noticed there is that if anything, it is even more stressful. And I believe that this year is more stressful for us for many, many, many reasons. And some of them I have personally experienced. Some of them I have watched those of you experience. And I wanted to share them with you today because I think there is value in knowing that you're not alone. And many of us are still processing what this year means and what it holds. And it's important for you to hear that you are not alone in the processing of this. And if there's one thing about myself that I used to be embarrassed about, but now I kind of am working to learn and own as a superpower, is that I generally have no qualms in talking about how I'm feeling and what I'm experiencing. And I share, because that's how I communicate and process, but I'm also moved by how other people share, and that moves and speaks to me. And I've learned that when I communicate how I'm feeling, it oftentimes finds a place in someone else's heart because it reminds them that they are not alone in that as well. So that is the reason and the impetus behind why I share. And also in real talk, I'm going through some crazy stuff this weekend as I'm recording this that connects all to this. So we'll see if I can make it through the episode with not getting a little teary-eyed, but it might just happen. So the reason why I think this is the most stressful time of the year of any year for a choir conductor is the sheer feeling of loss. And I would venture to say regret on some level. The sheer feeling of loss is no secret to any of you all why we would be feeling a sense of loss, and the loss being that of a live performance night after night, day after day. I often refer to this time period for a choral musician as the Super Bowl of choir music, right? With Easter following up soon there between. But even if you do not celebrate within the Christian faith, there is the secularized version of Christmas that many celebrate. And if you don't celebrate the religious or even the secularized version of Christmas, many folks celebrate Hanukkah and Kwanzaa, and also just the coming of a new year and of new hopes and new opportunities and new things to come. And there is just a sense of feeling of reflection and of hope as we look into this new year. also coupled with the exhaustion as we prepare to embody all of those emotions that people are feeling this time of year in the form of not just one concert, but oftentimes many, many concerts. And with that time of year, with that responsibility that we have both as conductors, teachers, they're kind of one and the same, but performers in regards to whether or not you're a vocalist or an instrumentalist, all the things. We all have been in this period of time of year where we have dreaded, if not every single aspect of it, at least a couple gigs of the time. I can think of a couple where I just didn't want to do it. It was all I could do to like muster and get out of bed and go perform this gig. There have been other times where you are even amidst the gig and usually you're loving it, but you are also ready for it to be over, or the sheer exhaustion when you finish a gig this time of year. And it's relief, it's exhaustion. Maybe there's even envy of when you look around at other people just enjoying it and thinking, gosh, what must it be like to attend a performance this time of year and to not have any concept of all of the logistics that go into making a concert something that someone can just go and attend and enjoy without any of the insider information. There's this envy that like, what must that be like? Because even as conductors, when we go and see other performances, we know what it takes to go behind the scenes, or we can't just listen to a performance and not be like, oh, that was a really great crescendo there, or oh, I loved that ending consonant on the end of m, or oh, I would have maybe tuned that a little differently, or all the different things. We can't just like sit and enjoy, or at least many of us can't just sit and enjoy. We are critiquers and betterers, and that is just, we can't usually turn it off. So there's that envy, right? That what must it be like to go through this time of year without the added pressures of being a choral music musician? Now it's different. And if you're anything like me on your a year ago today, or 3 years ago today, 8 years ago today, etc., you find yourself reminiscing more than ever the past musical experiences you've had an opportunity to be a part of, and remembering the stress, remembering the frustration, remembering the beauty, remembering the looks on people's faces that you could see when you were a singer, and maybe keeping your eye on the conductor, but side-eyeing out and seeing what people's faces looked like as you were singing. Or if you weren't looking at a conductor, the opportunity to be able to see faces in the audience when you are speaking to them through music. If you're a conductor, it's the fact that while you are moving your hands, you're able to see the looks on your students' faces as they are making music, and feeling all of that hard work that they have done come together. Woo, I told y'all. Come together, and it's the feeling that you didn't just teach them Carol of the Bells, or you didn't just teach them Let It Snow, or anything like that, but it's that you taught them that with hard work and with repeated diligence and consistency, you can improve and you can learn and you can go grow, and you can do that with others. And that is what you get to see and experience, and you have that moment together. And not having that is hard this year. And coupled with that sense of loss, there is envy and anger and frustration and comparison, because you are on your devices more than ever, and there is a part of you that longs to see what other people are doing, what other people are doing to counteract a virtual choir or a non-virtual choir or this or that. And you want to see what they're doing, but then you also don't want to see what they're doing because you maybe can't do any type of live performance. Maybe you haven't even been allowed to sing with your kids all year, and watching and being happy for those other conductors and students that are having that experience is also incredibly painful. And it's also a reminder that things are different and that you're not able to do that. Even if there's no way you could do performances out there in person, there is that feeling of, well, what if I had argued something differently? Or what if this? Or what if that? And it can send you into a spiral of frustration and despair and so many emotions that you've never had to process before because we've never been through this before. There are the live performances that you can look at and be frustrated and envious of and happy for them, right, on the side that they get to do that. But then also looking at it and going, that looks so different. Like, I think that the singers' masks look like men's underwear that are on people's faces. And I just can't, like, I can't personally, I can't watch some of the in-person performances where singers are wearing, particularly the white singers' masks, and not be like, it looks like every singer is wearing men's underwear on their face. And I can't take it seriously. I laugh. I can't stop. Like, so there's that aspect of it as well, that it's, even though they're singing this like beautiful time of the year carol, and it just does nothing for me because it's fruit of the loom. Then you also can look at the choir teachers that are doing online performances and online virtual choirs. And there is the comparison that, oh, that teacher can have an online choir. Oh, that teacher is doing this music. Oh, that teacher their virtual choir looks like this and my virtual choir looks like that. Or, oh, as a teacher, I don't have the technology to be able to record all of my kids singing that way. But when I say record, I mean to like mix and produce, or I don't have the time to be able to do that because it goes outside of your contract hours to be able to mix an entire virtual choir, and you don't have the budget to be able to do that as well. And you find yourself going, am I doing a disservice to my students because I'm not giving them this opportunity? Or maybe it's not even that. Maybe it's you are struggling to even get your students to turn in recordings. Maybe it's that your students don't even have devices that could record them singing in that way, or your students are too fearful to sing alone and by themselves on that way as well, and you are nervous and afraid and of asking them to do that, or knowing that they full well can't do that. And that influences the output that you can have as well. And we place so much value, and partially rightfully so, in the music that we make and the performance opportunities that we give. But then on the flip side, it's what do we do when we don't have that? And that causes you to then reassess and reflect on the tenets and of why we teach and what we're building to, and you can just go down that pathway as well. So there is all of these emotions that are tied to this time of the year, and as you think through all of what you could do, what you feel like you should do, what other people are doing, comparing what you see them doing to what you have done, and all of those different scenarios and emotions that I just covered, that I'm sure there's others that I haven't even thought of yet as well. There is then that mourning and that sadness because you had the opportunity, you feel like, years prior to be a part of this amazing thing that now we don't have. And there have been times this year, even I have gone like, I dreaded moments that I shouldn't have dreaded. I took for granted all of those opportunities that we had to sing with one another, to sing with people in a bar, to sing with alumni on a stage for this, to just go and Christmas carol with any kind of other person or anything like this. I took advantage and took for granted some of the opportunities that I had, and that can sometimes bring upon guilt for you as well. And that is a lot of emotions on top of everything else that this world has. That is a lot of stress. And I would venture to say that in some ways, because of all of that, this is the most stressful time of the year, because it's also been the most stressful year. And within that, there are feelings of loneliness. There are feelings of inadequacy. There are feelings of questioning if you are doing the right thing, if you are in the right place in your life. Almost on a weekly basis, I have spoken with a teacher, if not more than one teacher, who has questioned whether or not they want to stay in the classroom teaching choral music. And I feel so torn, because if you are listening to this for the first time, or you're still new and you're unfamiliar a little bit with me and my story, I have been a classroom choral choir chorus teacher for 10 years and felt this calling to leave the classroom setting to pursue this other dream of mine, which is pursuing business and in corporate America, and still being a part of the choir community through Choir Baton and other things that I have had up my sleeve, still have up my sleeve. Some things like a community choir that has been a bit derailed through COVID and through all of this period in my life that I am in, things that have kind of been derailed in that instance. And I am so passionate about teaching choral music, about the life-changing effects of choir, but yet I have left the classroom as well. And I know that people have reached out to me, I don't mean this to like toot my horn by any means, but just people have reached out to me knowing that I've done it and asked, what has it been like? How would you recommend it? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to take a big old swig of my coffee on that note, because I know that so many of you, particularly having gone through all of the stress that I just mentioned at the beginning of this episode, are then having and struggling with doubts of what that means for you professionally, right? And maybe it's probably not saying goodbye to choir and choral music if you do decide to leave a school setting, but what does that look like? How does that integrate? And that then adds on even more stress and more, quite frankly, fear and real life anxiety about what that means. So I share all of that in knowing that if you are in that boat, questioning, maybe it's not even leaving teaching, right? But just questioning, like, what is this? What am I doing? Why am I dedicating all of this time, and what is the return? And I wanted to do an amazing virtual choir for my students, and yet I'm spending just as much time responding to emails from parents that are upset because their child wasn't in it, when in fact their child didn't respond to the 5 email reminder messages that I sent them, and follow-ups to turn their stuff in time, and prolonged due dates, and their child didn't meet those expectations, but now they're still upset at me. Or all of the assignments that I had been asking students to complete and to turn in, they now are turning them in all within the last 48 hours of the due date because powers that be above me are saying last minute, okay, now they can turn them in. So I am stuck with 400 assignments to grade within a 48-hour time period. And I am dedicated to not just checking something off for the sheer fact of you turn something in, but want to be able to provide reflective feedback so that they know that I care, so that I can also evaluate where I am learning and where I can do better in teaching something because maybe they missed the mark, and or know that the way I was teaching that was effective because everyone is understanding it and has shown growth. There is all of this struggle to find your self-worth and to find where you are at and if you are in the right place, and it's just exhausting. And as someone that has recently left the safe confines of my choral music classroom, that I felt it was time for me to go and live this next journey of my life, I have to share that some of those same struggles that I felt then within those walls are still something that I struggle with within my current gray area of my professional life. For context, and hopefully not in an overshare, but to be realistic, when you go to business school full-time like I have, you are expected to essentially take an internship over the summer between year 1 and year 2. And that internship is often within a corporation and is designed to provide you valuable experience and insight into a company, and to also hope prepare you for a job, ideally in that company after the fact. And it's an incredibly crazy experience where there are a lot of parallels to finding a teaching position, and then there's a lot of different newness as well to finding a teaching position that I've gone through. But was very fortunate to find an internship at a company that I loved and have an amazing internship that I specifically have carried out into the school year. But there were times this past summer where I was told, oh, your internship, by someone that didn't totally know everything, right? But told by people that you won't be able to continue your internship into the school year. I don't know where you got that idea from. Or once my internship was continued into the school year, right, that I have now been applying for positions in which people will say, oh, well, yeah, your teaching experience is not transferable to corporate America. Or someone saying, I wouldn't hire a school teacher for this. I don't see the transferable skills. I don't see the difference. And those are specific examples that have happened in my life within the past several weeks, and they're painful and hard to hear. They're not completely unexpected. We know as teachers that we are underappreciated, and if you had any doubt in that, again, we can see the transition from how teachers were regarded in May to how they are regarded in September, October. I can also say that I have been around some amazing teachers, but I've also been around some not amazing teachers as well. And so I understand that people have their own biases in that regard. But now, having been in corporate America only for a mere 5 minus 12 is 7, right? 7-ish months, but still being pretty aware and being a listener and utilizing all those skills that I used as a conductor in this setting, seeing unbelievable amounts of parallels that remind me that teaching is an everything and is the utmost transferable skill because of all of the things that we do as a teacher. that it still has been hard hearing those things, particularly in what you have considered dream positions that you want and felt like you were being considered for, and then being downplayed because of what you are coming from and experiencing. I find myself in a similar mentality that I struggled with in the classroom, of feeling as though the work that I was doing was appreciated and important, and that I was doing the right thing, and quite frankly, that I was enough. This is I cannot believe I'm admitting this on a podcast that is going out to whomever, and here on a YouTube video as well. But I think that it's so important, because I'm a firm believer in the fact that it's all connected. And it connects back to everything that I shared at the beginning of this episode with the stress that we are feeling within this time of year, and the feelings of inadequacies, the feelings that we are not doing enough as a teacher, the feelings that when you look online and see these videos of students that their teacher hums up and they're all on a black screen, and then all of a sudden all the students start popping up and there's messages from students saying that it's easy for us to look at that and compare ourselves and go, my students didn't do that for me. I must not be as good of a choir teacher as they are. Or looking at the beautiful virtual choir that a choir did across the country. You don't know anything really about that choir or choir production, and comparing ourselves to that. Or maybe even harder still, seeing a virtual choir performance of a choir that you feel like you know a lot about, and maybe you even know that teacher, and thinking, why does theirs look that way and mine is not this way? Looking at the fact that there are programs even doing these virtual choirs of kids that are submitting their videos, and you can't even get your kids to come to class, much less turn on their camera, much less submit a recording of themselves singing, much less for you to even put on a program to edit it all together and to make a virtual choir. Or you don't have the funds to be able to up-level your computer to be able to even put together an entire virtual choir for your students and for your community. There's so many different ways in which we can begin to compare ourselves and begin to be stressed out about that it is exhausting. And I then hear that fear and frustration and exhaustion connect to questioning if we are doing the right thing, if we are in the right space career-wise, if we should continue teaching, whether it is at a church or a community choir or university choir or our public school or private school choir. It all filters down to that, because we are struggling with our self-worth and thinking that maybe if we moved on to do something else, that there would be a difference and that something would change. And I'm here to tell you that on some level, yes, there can be changes when you move on, and things can improve in certain regards to problems that you faced before. But quite frankly, the problems that plague us in one place will continue to plague us in others unless we begin to address them. And I'm a firm believer that they don't completely ever dissipate or go away. But instead, as we learn and grow as a person, we then learn and grow how to work through them and understand them and how to process them much faster than what we did originally when we began to experience these things. I would say earlier in our career, but these imposter syndrome feelings, etc. There's so many ways in which you could identify imposter syndrome as that then equate it themselves to stress. There are so many different ways that has been a part of our lives from probably before we even realized it. The point being that there are no quick and easy answers other than realizing that there are no quick and easy answers. There are no quick and easy answers other than realizing that you are not alone in that, and no quick and easy answers in realizing that, again, the feelings that you are feeling now of stress and exhaustion and questioning yourself and if you are doing the right thing for your students, for your school, for your community, and ultimately for yourself, don't make you alone. They make you human, that we are all struggling with this, and that for someone that has even left the classroom full time and is at times really feeling like I'm straddling a myriad of different worlds as I'm figuring out who I am and where I'm going and what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, that those feelings of looking at what someone else is doing and thinking I am not that good, or why isn't all of the work that I'm putting in here being appreciated or being seen or being understood? Why aren't people making these connections? This downward swirl of stress that we can find ourselves in is something that we have to continue to work on and work through, and that leaving certain places does not take away those same threads, but instead it's in realizing that you are not alone in dealing with them. It is in realizing that comparison is the thief of joy, as hard as that is to embrace at times. Reminding ourselves of that is critical in instances like this, and then leaning into what is your self-worth as a person. What do you bring to the table that makes you so uniquely you? Because every single person has that. And if you're struggling to find that within yourself, first off, firmly recommend therapy, but firmly recommend you thinking of yourself in your singer's seat and think of what you would say to yourself if you were that singer, and if you were conducting and encouraging and teaching them the music to try and make mistakes and to fail big, and to realize that you can only tell that one student that they are important and they matter so much until they begin to really embody and understand it themselves. And you've probably had students that this is the case, right? Like, you've seen that transformation happen in them, and what that brings to their life is that we have to remember to turn that back on ourselves, and to remember that we are important and that we bring value just as we are, for the amazing things that we do, but just as much for the ways in which we don't do amazing things, for the ways in which we fail and realize we could have done something better, as much for the ways that when we get to be in real performances and watch the faces of our singers as they nail the tuning of that one big fortissimo chord, as well as the balance in that pianissimo legato section as well, or the faces of people that are watching this as well, right? Like, that we get to be a part of that, and we are important within that scenario. It's so important for us to remember our value and remember our worth. And right now, I know it's hard. I wish that I had a quick answer for you. I wish that I said do X, Y, and Z, and then this will be true. But that's not always the case, and I have tactics, right, that I use. I've talked about even some of them here, and even in just that little bit, but the most important thing that I want to impress upon you is that it's the most stressful time of the year, of probably the most stressful year, and you are not alone in that. and that it's okay to mourn. It's okay to feel regret for the fact that we took for granted a lot of what we have been able to do as choral musicians in the past, but to also remember that what we do is so important. What you do is so important. More than what you do, who you are is unbelievably important. And I hope, pray, mantra, send all the thoughts to you this holiday season that you can begin to work through that you can begin to see that inside of you, that if anything else, you come back to the fact that you have maybe even lost sight of the fact that you matter, that you are amazing, that you are a gift, not just to the singers in your classroom that you know that you're making an impact on, but singers that you probably will never know that you are making an impact on as well. And to never settle for the fact that if you are in a situation that you don't feel appreciated, that you don't feel as though your value is really seen and appreciated, to not settle for that. But before you displace the fact that you feel that way on other people, you must first look within yourself and make sure that you know that within your heart so that you are displaying that value to others. If you wait and sit around and say, I don't feel valued from this person, I don't feel valued from that person, my singers don't understand the value that I'm doing, my parents don't understand the value that I'm doing, my school administration, the pastor that I'm working with, or any of the community members that I'm working with, they don't understand what I'm doing and how much I'm contributing into this, that they will never fully be able to give you the value that you want. Or if you think that they are, it will not be long lasting. It will be fleeting, because more than anything, you have to know that about yourself. And it's hard, but it's so incredibly important. And I believe that when you realize that, that will give you some of the strength that you need to step into whatever this next year will hold for you. It's okay that it's stressful, but we have the opportunity to really look within ourselves and remember that we matter, that the work that you do matters, and the person that you are is so important. Happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, happy no holidays if you don't celebrate this time of year. And I look forward to seeing you in our last episode of 2020 as we head into the year 2021. Hey y'all, and thanks for listening to the Choir Baton podcast. My name is Beth Philemon. I am your host and behind Choir Baton. I am so excited to share with you the fact that I will be opening the doors to the Choir Baton teaching membership in January of 2021. It will only be open for a limited time. So if you want to know when the Choir Baton teaching membership is open, what you need to do is click the link in the bio here and make sure that you are subscribed to our email mailing list, and also for good measure following us on social media, because I will be announcing it there as well. The Choir Baton teaching membership is a place for you to feel like you have a co-teacher with you in the world of teaching choral music. And I'm so stoked to be that co-teacher with you. The Choir Baton teaching membership provides resources for you to be able to implement within your choir teaching classroom, and that those resources come in a myriad of forms, such as slide decks that you can use, assessments that you can use, practices that you can use, and lessons that you can utilize as well. But the coolest thing about them is that they're all in videos that you can make accessible to your students via YouTube. So you could take the video and watch how and why I teach it, and then go and teach it yourself and send them the video of me as your co-teacher following up with them. It's like if you have students that are gone from a day and miss some of the work that you were talking about or explaining, you send them the video. If you have students that need extra practice, send them the video. You don't have time to be a content creator. Let me help you within that. But what's also incredibly unique is the methodology with how I teach. I look at teaching music through the lens of what do you need to know as a choral musician to be the most dangerous, coming from bare bones of not knowing anything. But I particularly come at it from a different approach. So if you have student A that has never been in a formal music ensemble or musical setting, and student B who has been in lessons for their entire life, just about, that the information presented is going to be new to both of them. I'll be sharing more about this methodology that I use, so make sure that you are signed up to find out when I'm opening the doors to the Choir Baton teaching membership. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Choir Baton podcast. As always, if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, would love a review if that platform supports reviews. And if you are watching on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to know when we release new videos. And as always, make sure that you have checked us out on social media and you are following us there. This episode has been recorded by yours truly and produced by my right-hand person and former student and current choral music education student, Maggie Hemedinger. We are Choir Baton, and we are More People Singing.